we'll check it out. Pretty excited. We just got a box. Should be our new merch. So this is our first order of sweatshirts. I'm kind of excited to see how they come out because I've never ordered from this site before, but I'm really excited. If you guys want one, just hit us up on Instagram and DM us and we can make that order happen. So they've got the Backyard Beaters logo on the front and then the big logo on the back with the YouTube channel URL. So pretty exciting. How's it look? Sweet. One other thing, we also have stickers still, so I've got quite a few of them still. These have been a pretty big hit. I've sold a lot of them, so if you want one, we're just asking $1. I mean, you're just paying for my cost for the stickers, so I'm happy to ship them out. So again, hit us up on Instagram if you want some.
Oh my god, dude, it did not let up.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video we're going to be continuing the 5-speed swap series on my ZJ. In the last video we got the transmission and cross member all put up together. It's under its own weight, it's all bolted up. We got the link moved, all clearances sorted out, so that's super exciting. In today's video I really want to try and get it running. Not necessarily driving, I got a lot of work to do before then, but I really want to hear it start and run. But there's a few things that we need to do before that. So first and foremost, we need a starter. But in order to put a starter on it, because of the new transmission and the starter location, I need new headers. And in order to put the headers on, I'm not sure how much work is involved. So that's the goal for today, though, is to hear this thing run by the end of the day. So here we are looking at the starters. The one on the right is the one out of my ZJ, and the one on the left is the one out of the Dodge. Obviously the most notable part is that they are pretty much exactly flipped, right? And so originally I had planned on just taking the ZJ starter and flipping it around because the starter is pretty new. But what that does is that's going to cause this big thing that hangs down to be on the bottom. Which, if it was like a daily driven car, that'd probably be okay, but with me, where I'm all concerned about clearance and up travel and yada yada yada, I definitely want that on the top. And so if you get the one with the Dodge, it puts that on top. But the holes look pretty much the same. The splines look pretty much the same. So I'm pretty sure if a guy wanted to, he could use this one. But I'm going to use the Dodge one. It's also interesting how much smaller the Dodge one is. See how much bigger the ZJ one is. So, interesting stuff. Okay. Alright, so with the heat shield off, you can see I have quite a bit more room to work with. This might actually be possible, so that's exciting. So you can see the bolts I need to take out are here. You know, here, there's some in the back that are hard to see. I'm going to spray them all with PB Blaster a little more, and then put a hand wrench on there and see if they turn at all. If I feel like they're gonna break at all, I'm going to just get the torch out and heat them up real nice and hot and hope that they come out. Because if you break those off into the block, you got some serious problems. You know, you can't bolt a new header on. So, wish me luck. Oh my god, you guys, those bolts, They were not tight at all. I cannot believe how easy that came out. What a blessing. Let's hope and pray the other side's like that. Oh my God, these weigh a ton. Oh. So I was getting ready to throw these puppies on, and shout out to my boy Jacob, who made me go and check and make sure that they were actually stainless. I just assumed they were stainless. Checked the ad. Of course, they're not. So, went and bought some high temp header paint. Gonna paint them up before I throw them on so they don't rust out when we're snow wheeling. Alright guys, so to give an update on what I'm working with here, the clearance is really tight up against the frame, and that's not even including my tubed front end here. I'm just talking about the actual frame. These are some universal headers, you know, and so I've beat them in a little bit. They're not flat by any means, they're still half a tube there, and it's really close. I think I can get them to fit. But I decided before I beat these anymore, I should work on the driver's side and getting that header off, seeing how far off that one was going to be. So that ended up giving me problems on that bolt right down there. You can kind of see it way down in there. So I could not get the heat shielding off of the header because the steering column runs right through here, and that bolt is so long that it was backing out into the steering column, and there was no way that I could see around it. So the next step was to pull the steering column. So you can see I have that completely pulled. That wasn't that big of a deal. It's just kind of ridiculous that, you know, I'm doing this to put a starter on. You shouldn't have to pull the steering column to put a starter on, but custom applications require custom solutions. So I think I can get to it now, so hopefully we can get this header off, get the bolts out smoothly, and then see how tight the fit's going to be. I got a feeling this side's going to be even worse, so I don't know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Alright, I got it. That was not very fun. There is not a whole lot of room, especially with my shock tower right there. You can see it's a very tight fit. I'm very concerned about clearance against the frame on this side as well. This side looks even worse than the other side, but it's hard to tell until I get the header in there. So I guess next step will be cleaning up the block and getting the other header ready to see how bad the clearance is. Now is also a great time to change your spark plugs or your plug wires if you haven't done that in a while, since they're so easily accessible right now. So I think I'm going to do that as well. Oh baby, she is in. She's looking good. She clears the frame by a mile. Loads of room. I thought this was going to be way worse than that. This side was not that bad. Passenger side, yeah, don't even want to talk about it. But the driver's side, which is the side that I needed the clearance on, it fits. I didn't even have to modify the header. Bolted right up. Honestly, wasn't that bad. So, sweet. So as I lay back under here, now that I have this header installed, you can see all the clearance that we gained here for the starter. Maybe I'll flash back to what the stock header looked like with the dump in the rear right here, dumping straight into the starter. Now we can have a starter, and we can still have an exhaust that dumps, runs right in front of the oil pan here to the other side. So pretty excited. Didn't have to trim the frame at all or anything like that. The passenger side is a different story. I'm still working on that one, but this is the one that was important. You know, worst case scenario, I could put the stock header back on the other side and you know, live with it, but I'm gonna try and make it work. Alright, so now that I have this header on, fresh plugs, fresh wires, the driver's side is nearing completion. Before I put the steering shaft back in though, I want to get the clutch pedal and everything all back into place where it needs to be. That way I'm not trying to squeeze the slave cylinder underneath the steering shaft and stuff. So I started to take that apart. On my Jeep specifically, because it's a 93, they come molded from the factory ready for a clutch pedal, even though the V8's never had one. So if you are doing this swap and you have a 93, you're in luck. Otherwise, you're probably gonna have to drill your own holes. But even so, it's not that big of a deal. So underneath here, you can see one hole, and then there's a little bolt down here and a little cover plate, like a little dust plate. And then up here, there's two little dimples right here and right here. That's where your reservoir is gonna go. And again, if you're doing this and you don't have a 93, I mean, it's not that hard to drill a couple holes, no big deal. So I'm gonna try and punch that plate out and get the interior ready. So I'm getting everything tore apart here, and I'm starting to look into this a little deeper here, and I was planning on actually taking the brake pedal off of the TJ clutch and brake assembly that I bought. However, turns out the little clip, there you can kind of see it, is on the wrong side. So on the ZJ it's pointing this way, and on the TJ it's pointing that way. Obviously a guy could, you know, cut that off and weld it the other way. Wouldn't be that big of a deal. But I got to looking, I compared the two pedals, and they're pretty much the same, minus this one is just wider. So I have the rubber off of, this is out of the Dodge brake pedal, and it actually matches the shape of it pretty good. So what I think I'm gonna do is just stick it on there, draw a line with a Sharpie, and then chop that off, and then you know, just have a skinnier brake pedal. I mean, that's basically what the manuals do anyways, so. Alright. So, now I just gotta get this put on. And just like that, we got ourselves a standard looking brake pedal. Cool, that worked out pretty nice. Alright, so I got the little backing plate off. You can see the fresh black underneath there. Here's what came off. It was definitely glued, so even after I got the bolts out, I had to pry it off. I just used my little trim pry tool, got up under there and popped it off there. It wasn't too bad. But now we have a nice pretty hole that's ready for our clutch bracket and master. Alright, so excuse the mess. I haven't cleaned up yet. It's late. I'm going to clean up in the morning. But before I toss this in, I figured I should go over the parts here that I got. So as far as the clutch pedal, this is a TJ clutch pedal that I bought used off of eBay. Turns out they are pretty much exactly the same as the ZJ ones. It was literally a bolt-in fit. I didn't have to change anything. This bracket, this is a Reman clutch pedal bracket for a ZJ made by the guy who did the stick shift ZJ build series on YouTube. He makes these and he sells them on eBay or on his website, stickshiftzj.com. It's a bolt-in bracket. Since it's as far as I can tell, it isn't any different than the stock bracket, but good luck finding one. They're just impossible to find. So this guy went and had a whole bunch cut out on a CNC machine, and he sells them, and it looks like it's gonna work great. So as far as the master and slave go, and the reservoir, so I had originally planned on using the master and slave out of the Dodge. But come to find out, the way that it bolts to the firewall is totally different. It like slides in and twists and locks rather than bolts, and so it wasn't going to work with this bracket at all. A guy could have probably done it, but I looked into that a little bit because I really didn't want to spend the money on this. These are like $400 out of O'Reilly's, and so I really wanted to use the Dodge one, but it was going to end up having. I was going to have to swap the entire pedal assembly, like throttle, brake, clutch, all of it. And then that put the brake on a totally different side of the steering column, which meant I would have had to move the booster on the other side of the firewall, and it was just a big can of worms that I wasn't trying to get into. So I started looking around, and I found these. This is a brand new ZJ inline 6 master and slave cylinder that, as far as I can tell, should work with the NV3500, and it should bolt right up to here. I bought it off of Amazon for like 200 bucks, so wasn't terrible. Better than 400 and better than me. You know, the extra $200 was worth me not having to deal with the rest of the pedals and stuff. So that's what I'm working with. Alright, well, the clutch bracket is in. Sorry I didn't film that. That was kind of honestly horrible. There's so many wires and laying on my back underneath the dash. It's never fun. There's no way I could get a camera in there. I barely got the clutch bracket in there. So, but it does fit. It was tight. Getting the clutch pedal and master and slave all hooked up is definitely going to be challenging. So I guess that's the next step. Oh yeah, check it out. We got ourselves a master cylinder. I don't have the reservoir mounted yet. It's just kind of hanging out. But the master is bolted on. The clutch bracket is on. I got the lines routed. That was kind of a pain with my coilover mount there. You have to squeeze it up in here, and as you can see, there's not a whole lot of room there. One note is I don't like how far this clutch line hangs out. So I'm probably gonna, cause my tire's like right here. So I think I'm probably gonna build a skid plate for it just to protect it for cheap insurance. It's probably okay. None of the paint's wore off right there, so it's not like the tire's been rubbing there. But still, that's a little scary having that out in the open. That's a pretty critical part, so I'll probably build something later. And check it out, we got ourselves a slave. So I was a little nervous that this slave wouldn't fit on this transmission because it's not technically for this transmission. This slave is for a ZJ with the inline 6 and the manual tranny, which as far as I know is the AX15, and this is obviously the NV3500 out of a Dodge. But I knew that the bolt holes were pretty close to the same, and it bolted right up and it went in, no problem at all. So pretty excited about that. The line routing was pretty much perfect. Everything was perfect. So pretty cool. Look at that. That's a main pedal right there. We don't have the gas pedal yet, but that one's easy. That is a clutch pedal, and the brake pedal looks pretty good considering it's the auto one I just cut. I have tested it. There's totally room for my feet. It feels pretty good. Even with my big old Romeos, there's totally room for both of them. And the pedal feels pretty good. Hell yeah. So I thought I'd give an update on the header situation, and yeah, that's what we're working with. Now I know what you're thinking, Chris, this tube's not even open, but I mean it is. Look, I'm not happy about it, but that's what I gotta do to clear the frame on that side. The other option is to run the stock manifold rather than this one, and then have one aftermarket on one side and one stock on the other side. I'm not sure what complications come with doing that, so I'm going to try this because, you know, it's either try it, it works, yay, or it doesn't, throw it away. But I have it, so I'm going to try it. Yeah, I've had this header off probably 20 times, maybe 30. For more adjustments, more massaging. So if you're doing this swap and you're wanting to, you know, get new headers for your ZJ, the driver's side went smoothly. I didn't have to modify nothing. It just bolted right on. But the passenger side, man, it's putting up a fight. So just either get different headers or be aware of that and be mentally ready for it. But I think it clears right now, so I'm gonna paint it and toss it on. So as I'm working on getting the other side of the header on, it's bolting up, no problem. I thought I should mention one other thing, which is the EGR. So if you're gonna do this on your ZJ, most of them, as far as I understand, have the EGR valve right here, which you're going to have to do an EGR delete if you haven't already. So if you see this tube, it's going to be attached to that header right here, basically, right in the back by the firewall on the passenger side. This runs around to the back of the motor. All you have to do is unbolt it, right? So it's going to be bolted right here. Right, here's the back of the firewall. It's going to be bolted right here. And then I just took this and I made a stencil of this out of some sheet metal, and I bolted it on right there just to block it off. It's just a block off plate, is all it is. If you aren't running aftermarket headers, if you decided to not do that, but you still want to do the EGR delete, which is what I did like a year ago, you can just do a back off plate on that and a back off plate on this, which is what I have been running for a long time. And that's the EGR delete. But so I'm just gonna leave this EGR tube here, and then I have it zip tied up out of the way so it's not bouncing around. And the new headers obviously don't have that. So that's that. Alright, so talking about the starter cables here for a minute. Obviously they aren't long enough to reach the driver's side now, so I need to extend them. And so my plan for that is I just kind of disconnected them and ran them up through the engine bay here. You can see I got it pulled up here. And then I've got them both snipped and stripped. And so then I have this cable here. Unfortunately it's black, but whatever. That I have snipped, stripped, and ready to go. And the plan is, rather than, you know, I could have, I guess, bolted the two eyelets together and that probably would have worked, but to make a little more of a secure connection, I have a little piece of copper tubing here. And then I'm going to crimp it on one end, and then I'm going to heat up some solder and melt it and fill it full of solder, like molten solder, and then I'll stick the other end in it like that. So that way it's a nice solid connection, and I won't have to worry about it coming loose. So that's the plan. Alright, there we go. Went on nice and sturdy. I've yanked on it, it ain't coming off. And then I wrapped both the wires that I butt connected pretty heavily in some electric tape. Unfortunately I only had white, but whatever. And then I connected them just so they stayed together, and now they are plenty long. So that should have no problem. I'm probably gonna have to shorten them or wrap them up or something because I'm gonna have more than enough. Alright guys, so laying underneath here, I thought I'd show you the starter wiring that I ended up running. It's not perfect, but it'll definitely do the job. So you can see right here, this is the old loom that it used to come out of. I basically pulled it out, and then I did the little solder connection for the extension. I run it all the way across to the driver's side on my steering box brace, and then I loop around. It goes up over the motor mount and down to the starter. So laying under here, you can see where it comes out from under the motor mount, down under the header, and then there's the starter, and it all works. So that should do it. I definitely had more wire than I needed, so I just kind of did a little loop-de-loop here and tie it up out of the way. Try to keep it out of the exhaust and the header and stuff. So I'm a little concerned about right here that it might wear through, so I might end up wrapping that in some electric tape or getting something to sheathe that right there, but should be okay, I think. So I just realized that I never talked about the neutral safety switch. This is, if you're doing something like this is going to be critical, otherwise the vehicle will not turn over because it doesn't know that you're in park or neutral. And so obviously you can't just plug it back in, so the way you do that is you snip it and rewire it. So this is what the factory plug off of the auto looked like for the neutral safety switch, and it was just in, like, you know, the main harness. So you'll find this little funky looking thing, snip the wires off of it. The yellow one is to your reverse lights, so if you care and you want that to work, you have to wire that into the new transmission where the neutral safety switch is and find the reverse lights. And then the other two, you're just gonna strip them and butt connect them together. So mine are black with a green stripe and black with a white stripe, and then you just strip them and get a butt connector and I'm gonna tape the reverse light off. I don't think it matters, but I don't want loose wires bouncing around, obviously. So yeah, that should do that. All right, so the time has come. The starter is in, the battery is all hooked back up. I have the shifter kind of haggardly tossed in there. I think I'm gonna try and start it. There's no drive lines, so it can't go anywhere in case I hook the clutch up wrong. So worst case scenario, you know, it doesn't start. Yeah, I don't know, I'm kind of nervous. I'm not sure if the clutch pedal's in the right spot or not, and if it's going to engage all the way. I'm also not sure if my computer is going to be happy about the fact that I have a manual and the auto transmission is nowhere to be found. So this may not even fire, so I don't know. We're going to hop in and crank it though and find out. And I'm going to sit on the floor because there's no seat. I guess I should push the clutch in, eh? That's new. Well, the starter works. It didn't sound like there was any spark though. I did unhook the fuel line earlier, so maybe that's part of it. Okay. So, I don't know why it's not starting. I don't know. Could be a couple of different things. Could be the computer. I might need the computer and the wire harness out of the other truck. But I don't think so. As far as I know, there's only two things that the computer cares about, and that's the neutral safety switch and the crank position sensor. And I know I have the neutral safety switch hardwired correctly because it's cranking, and if I unhardwire it, it doesn't allow me to crank anymore because it thinks I'm not in neutral. And so I know I have that right. I've had that hardwired for a long time. So that kind of only leaves the crank position sensor, which is so weird because I was pretty confident in my little spacers that I did earlier. So I think what I'm going to do, unfortunately, is lower the cross member again and try and get up there and change the crank position sensor to the Dodge one, and then cut the plugs and hardwire it, butt connect it to the other plug. Because if you remember right, that was the reason I didn't use the Dodge crank position sensor, was because the plugs were different. So if I snip the wires on this one and use the plug off of this crank position sensor, but use that crank position sensor, maybe that'll fix it. I don't know. I'm kind of grasping at straws here. So yeah, wish me luck. Alright, so here I am like 3 hours later. I finally got the crank position sensor out. So this is the one out of the Jeep. This is the one out of the Dodge. I snipped the one out of the Jeep and I butt connected the Jeep connector to the Dodge crank position sensor. Hopefully I did it the right direction. I had it laid out to where both of the connectors had the point going up, so as far as I can tell, that's right. So I'm going to throw that one in and cross your fingers. I hope that's it. I also figured I'd show you, in case anybody was curious on how to change a crank position sensor on one of these ZJs without dropping the transmission, because it's nearly impossible unless you cut a nice little access port in the floorboard there. So I've had that for a long time. I actually have a little plate that I made to cover it up when I'm not using it. That way, if I ever had one go out on the trail, it would be possible to change it to get it home. If you're building one of these and you're wheeling it, I highly suggest you do that before it goes out, because otherwise you're getting towed home. All right, try number whatever. Gonna see if this works. I just changed the crank position sensor, so. Yes! Oh, it's working. What a relief, you guys. Man, I was so stressed that I was gonna have to deal with computer issues of some kind, but oh my God. Well, it works. What a huge milestone. I'm so stoked to get here. From here, it's just a little few things, you know, drive lines, obviously button up the holes in the floorboard, put the interior back in, gotta finish the exhaust because it's kind of extreme right now, and then we can take it for its first test drive. So I'm super excited, but that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.